They didn't burn a city. They didn't just riot. They overthrew an entire government in the United States. And almost nobody talks about it. In 1898, in Wilmington, North Carolina, Black Americans were not just surviving. They were governing. This wasn't symbolic. This wasn't temporary. This was power taking shape. Men like George H. White were operating at the national level, proving that Black political power could extend beyond local boundaries. Inside Wilmington, that power had structure. A Black-owned newspaper, led by Alexander Manly, was shaping public thought, challenging the narratives that upheld white supremacy. And at the federal level, men like John C. Dancy held authority over the port itself, controlling one of the most important economic entry points in the city. And within Wilmington's government, Black aldermen, Black officials, were part of the system. They weren't just voting, they were governing. They weren't just participating, they were shaping the system. This was infrastructure. Power you could see. Power you could measure. Power that was organizing itself. And that was the problem. Because what was happening in Wilmington was something the system had already seen before. Moments where Black communities weren't just surviving, but organizing, building, voting, controlling outcomes. And every time that happened, it created the same reaction. Not panic, not chaos, but something more calculated. Fear, not of violence, but of control shifting. Because if power could change hands here, then it could change anywhere. And that was unacceptable. So this wasn't just about Wilmington. This was about stopping a pattern before it spread. And Alexander Manly's newspaper became the flashpoint. Not because it was dangerous, but because it refused to submit. It challenged the narrative. And that was enough. So they didn't debate it. They didn't vote it out. They organized against it. White supremacist leaders launched a coordinated campaign. Newspapers pushed propaganda. Speeches warned of Black domination. Armed militias began to form. This wasn't chaos. This was planning. And on November 10th, 1898, they made their move. Hundreds of armed white men entered Wilmington. They burned down Manly's newspaper office. They hunted Black citizens in the streets. Black businesses were targeted. Political leaders were forced into hiding. Entire families ran. Estimates say dozens were killed, but the real number was never officially recorded. And then came the part history almost erased completely. They forced elected officials to resign at gunpoint. The mayor, city leaders, removed, not voted out. Imagine that. An entire government, not defeated in an election, but erased overnight. No vote. No process. Just force. And in their place, they installed their own government. That's not a riot. That's a coup. The only successful coup in United States history. And it worked. Black political power in Wilmington was destroyed overnight. Communities collapsed. Families fled. And what had been a functioning Black political system was erased. And here's what makes this story even more important. No one was held accountable. No charges. No justice. No restoration. Because this wasn't seen as a crime by those in power. It was seen as a correction. And this pattern has been studied, broken down, explained by thinkers like Claude Anderson and Amos Wilson, who both argued that when a group begins to build independent power, economic, political, or social, the response is rarely negotiation. It's containment, disruption, or removal. Not because of what that group has done, but because of what it could become. That's how erasure works. Not just through violence, but through silence afterward, through textbooks that skip it, through narratives that soften it, through a system that decides what gets remembered and what gets buried. Wilmington wasn't just an attack on a city, it was a message, a warning about what happens when Black organization becomes too powerful to ignore.